I love helping authors, entrepreneurs, motivational speakers, podcast hosts, people who are crushing it in life and business. I love helping them to be able to reach and impact more people. I hated the retail business, the phone business, that entire thing made a lot of money, but was a terrible business to be in, and you weren't helping anybody.
All right. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in this world, everybody. This is Max from the Fearless Happiness Podcast. And today I have a special guest, M. Curtis McCoy. He's got a great story. It's going to be an amazing time. So everybody listen in. So what I like to do, Curtis, is have you introduce yourself to my audience, like who you are, what it is you do. And then, like I said, we're going to rock and roll.
Sounds good, Max. Man, I'm so glad to be on your show. I appreciate you having me on. And I noticed the first thing you spell happiness, like in The Pursuit of Happiness with Will Smith, one of my favorite movies in history.
Right. Yeah. The why is very important.
I love that. That's awesome. Anybody that doesn't know me yet, I mean, if you Google me, it's pretty easy to find, not to sound conceited, but I'm in personal branding. So if you Google M. Curtis McCoy, I've got probably just over 700,000 followers on social media between the different profiles. One of our Facebook groups has over 420,000 active daily members. So that's what I do is I help people build their brand, help successful people who are already crushing it in life and business, help them get out there and reach a larger audience so they can impact and affect more people.
No, I love it. I love it. That's kind of what I'm doing, is building a brand at the moment. And this is one of my vehicles, but this is for me is a labor of love, right? Like I love doing this and having gentlemen like yourself come on here and share their story. Right. And right. Cause not everybody, well, most people have a backstory where they've gone through challenges, right, to get to where they are today. So if you would share some of those challenges or your backstory, give them a history of where you come from and and let the audience get to know you, as they say.
So there's a SoundCloud, I think they're on SoundCloud, was a famous band, a kind of up and coming band out of Europe. The kid had, I think, 100,000 plays on his first song. So was crushing it. This young guy reached out to me on Instagram looking for a quote. He said he'd reached out to Tony Robbins and Grant Cardone and, all the big dog motivational speakers.
Right.
And was just so excited that I replied to him. He said, I was wondering if you could record, go to a music studio or something and record some type of a quote so I can build a song around it. I'd like to do some kind of an inspirational, uplifting song. And so when he responded, I'm like, heck yeah, I'd love to do that. And he said, well, I can't really afford to pay you right now, but I would love to, I'd be happy to pay the studio fees if you find a studio that can do it for, where it's not too expensive for that audio clip. So luckily I have one in the back office here. So I'll run in and record something for you. And they actually built a pretty cool song around this quote. But answering your question, I said the difference between winners and losers is losers use their past as an excuse. Winners use it as a reason to become something better. So I sent over the quote. It turned out a really cool song. That's the biggest thing is what we decide to do with our past and the junk that we've gone through. Everybody's been through crap that sucks in their life, and some people use it to get better, and some people use it as a reason to stay the same.
Right. And what were some of those challenges that you faced that you used as a tool to become a better man, as they would say?
So I don't typically talk about this on podcasts a lot. I grew up in a real rough household where my dad, one time it had been beat me for hours. I heard all throughout my childhood, you're a waste of skin, you're a waste of oxygen. And it had been hours where he was, just one of those days. And he had me dig in a hole. So I'm pretty young, but it had me dig a hole just higher than my head, and I thought maybe I was digging my own grave. I didn't know what was going to happen there. So I'm digging this hole. Then you get done, you go tell dad you're done there. And then he'd have you crawl out and start digging another hole to fill in digging another hole to fill up the first hole with that dirt.
Right.
Then you dig another hole to fill that next hole with the dirt. Just stuff to prove, kind of like a military type of training.
Right.
just to show you, you have absolutely zero value. And again, you're a waste of skin, you're a waste of oxygen. So went through a lot of that kind of stuff. But one day after this had all happened, he had bought a stack of wooden telephone poles. I don't know if you've ever tried to climb a telephone pole, but not splinters is definitely part of it.
Right.
But he had these dropped off on a flatbed trailer, dropped them off at the bottom of this hill on the property. And then part of the being in trouble there was he had me rolling these telephone poles up the hill, with a pry bar. So you stab it in, roll it up, just inches at a time to move this entire stack to the top of the hill.
Right.
Got to the top, you go down and tell Dad, hey, I got to move to the top. Okay, bring them back down. Just your life has no value. So I've been doing this. When I come inside, it's been probably a 10, 12-hour day of just working. You get skin peeling off, blisters on your fingers that broke and peel off. And so at one point he had backhanded me again. I'm hearing, you're a waste of skin, you're a waste of oxygen. Had to be a loaded .357 pistol. Walked out, came back in, handed me this pistol, or I guess set it on the counter on the bathroom floor, or on the bathroom counter, and told me to do the world a favor. So that's probably the biggest thing. I mean, but again, we all go through junk. Yeah, I could have decided to be that same kind of a guy, the same type of, pass that down and use that as an excuse, where, like I heard my dad say, my dad raised us this way and I turned out just fine. Like, no, you turned out to be an abusive loser, just like your dad was.
Right.
So something where we, again, choose to let it define you, or choose that as a reason to become something different than what you had the example of.
Right. And, I mean, that takes a lot of strength and resilience not to let that rule your brain every waking moment, especially growing up. Right. And like you said, because when that happens, it's like the military, right? Things become a habit that they teach you things that you do over and over, like in boot camp, right? Marching or doing whatever drills you got to do, right? You learn it because you're doing it over and over, right? And let me preface this, right? Those are not the kind of habits that we want to teach our children or be a part of, right?
Yeah.
But like you said, you chose to actually use that as a strength and used it as a benefit or something to strengthen your character, right? Because as you know, I'm sure you've run across people, they either define themselves by the things that have happened to them in the past, or they use them as stepping stones, like you and I, right? We try to use those lessons in life to strengthen who we are as a person. One, to learn those things, right? As they say, you learn things not to do and you learn things to do. And even in those things that are, someone's listening right now going, wow, man, Curtis's dad was brutal, right? He wasn't, I'm going to say, what an asshole, like how does someone do that to a child, right? But it actually made you very strong because you decided that wasn't going to be who I'm defined as, this kid that got beat up and, brutalized by my dad, but I'm going to use it as a lesson to make me a stronger human being. And that happens over time. But when did you realize when you were growing up, right? Like, okay, I can't change dad, but I can change me. How did that happen? Like where you said, I'm going to use this to make me a better person.
So, and again, I try not to talk on that, about this kind of stuff a whole lot on podcasts, because what typically gets pulled out for the social media clips is, oh, this poor guy, learn how, listen to how Curtis McCoy sitting on the bathroom where his dad sitting on the bathroom floor. Right. His dad told him to kill himself. And that's not my identity now. Right. So I'm happy to share about that stuff. But even I think talking too much about it, once you've overcame, I mean, we've got to talk. You got to work through your problems, whether you're struggling with addiction, whether it's child abuse or whatever you've got through. But I feel like once that's not a pain that you're, an open wound that you're still dealing with, maybe you can share it to help some other people. But also I think it's good to not talk too much about that past. This is what I went through. This is what I went through over and over again, where you remind yourself that that's your identity.
Absolutely. I agree.
I try a lot more to focus on where I'm at now and where I'm going in the future. Right. But tell me, I didn't mean to get off you probably know I survived brain cancer as well. So my short-term memory is not awesome. So if you don't mind, would you start that question again there?
Yeah, no problem, Curtis. Right. Like, yeah. And I agree with you, right? Like, you shouldn't dwell on the past and constantly, because we know, I'm sure you know people, I know people that do that all the time. And it's like, hey, we're in the present moment.
Yeah.
Let's, like, what did you learn? Let's move forward. Because I don't like to say move on or get over it, right? Because a lot of things take time to move through. And
Yep.
so what I was asking is, like, once you realize like that wasn't going to be your identity, how did those things strengthen you as a human being? That's what I want to get to, right? Like, not dwell on it, but how did it make you grow stronger as a person to get to where you are today?
So the thing that really changed my whole identity, actually kept me from killing myself that day, after my dad had handed me that pistol, told me to do the world a favor. I used to sneak out of school during our lunch break. I'd take off. We got $1.75 for school lunch. That may date me because I'm sure that's probably the cost of a cup of Jello now. But we used to get $1.75 on our books for the school lunch. We get cash, and I could go get. You could pay either $1.75 for lunch, but I would buy a cup of Jello, either a cup of Jello or an apple for 25 cents. I'd keep the $1.50, and I saved that up to buy stamps to write my mom letters. I was trying to save up to run away. But what I figured out, I took off the one day after I'm trying to decide, okay, if my own dad is telling me to kill myself, I probably don't have any value. I mean, how could God love me if he created my dad and my dad is telling me to do this?
Right.
So I took off with a pocket full of cash that I'd been saving up in an envelope in my locker. And I snuck out during lunch break, ran down to this used bookstore, and I walked in the store there. And as I'm looking around, the store clerk said, "Hey, is there something I could help you find?" And so I'm shyly said something along the lines of, they're expecting me to look for comic books or some kind of kids thing. But I said, I'm trying to figure out how to be a good person. So the store clerk there, kind of taken back, asked a couple questions and stuff, and like, basically, I'm trying to figure out how to be. I'm not sharing the story about my dad and stuff, but ended up handing me a copy of How to Win Friends and Influence People. One of the coolest, most influential books I've ever read.
Right.
I've read the book probably 24 times. I've got, every color of marker and highlighter. And I actually still have that original copy that I bought at 13 years old. But it's good, pencil, pen, every color highlighter.
Right.
And that book is what let me figure out, if I can figure out how to solve a problem for people, if I can figure out how to make people feel good, I don't have to grow up to be the exact same, like the saying, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
Right.
Man, I can choose my own, I can choose who I'm going to become and the type of person I'm going to help, the type of person I'm going to be because of that book. So that was really the turning point for me.
Right. And I think that clerk giving you that, right, that's like divine intervention. It's like someone handed in that book, said, this kid really needs this book, right? Because it's going to help change his life. You're right. And just because we were raised a certain way doesn't mean we have to be just like that person, right? And I know that, right, in the addiction field, I see it every day, right? Like, I've seen where, the parents are suffering from addiction just as well, right? And you go, okay, so it's that nurture versus nature, right? So they're in it. So that's why, okay, their children are addicted, right?
Yep.
But I've also seen the opposite. And I'm sure you have too, where the parents could be totally alcoholic, drug addicts, and the kids decide that's not the life for me. I'm going to break that generational curse. It took me a while to do that because it's on both sides of my family. But like you, I decided, like, how am I going to help people? Right. And I think when you find that passion, no matter how that looks like, just the fact that you want to help people get to where they want to go, I think that's when your life changes. Right. And for you, and we'll get into that here real quick too soon, is branding, helping people reach more people with their brand and get known and, so they can help other people.
Yeah, that's exactly how I got into personal branding.
Right. So you're 13 and you read a very, that book has been around for years, and you're not the first guest that said that is one of the books that changed their life. You know, it's that powerful. Like, but so when did you decide? So you're 13. Did you go back home, or are you like now you're going out into the world on your own to change the way you see the world and do things?
Yeah, I grew up. I mean, we'd run away a couple times and stuff. And long story, ended up kept getting drugged back by the had kind of crooked court system where my dad was buddies with the county sheriff and stuff.
Oh yeah. Oh man.
So we had, when you tell the sheriff would tell you, he'd call and say, "Hey, Jim, take this boy home and, make sure he learns a lesson about talking about you in public." So no, I ended up, I got out, put myself through college, just trying to figure out what I was going to do. But
that takes a lot of drive, right? But the good side of how you were raised, that lit the fire, like the literal fire under your butt to do something different and get out of there. Right.
Well, and you'll see brothers. I mean, you could talk to two brothers that grew up with the same abusive, worthless parents. And I mean, my mom was phenomenal. I'm not talking about me and my brother, but you talk to two brothers and you go, okay, why are you an addict? Why are you, why are you homeless? Why are you in the situation you're in? Well, my dad was an addict, and that's the reason I am the way I am. We talked to the other brother, man, why are you running this successful company? Why are you doing all these great things? Well, my dad was an addict, and that's the reason I chose to be the way I am. It has nothing to do with the actual upbringing. It's just the choice of the kid that decided to make something of himself.
Have you ever heard you've heard of David Goggins, correct?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yes. A similar situation, right? With the brother, one stayed with dad, who was very abusive, and one went off with mom, and, one did his thing, and one became a Navy SEAL and a ultra marathon runner. And, and two different, right? One didn't see dad the same way as he did, even though he was, but you made a decision. It sounds like I want to do better. It's kind of almost like you're looking into the future. Like, this is not going to happen if I ever have children and have a wife and stuff. I'm going to be totally opposite of what my dad did. And, but what led you, Curtis, to branding? Like, what was the hook that got you into wanting to, besides what you said, the guy that called you and said, "Hey, look, can you do this thing?" Like, when did you know that was your avenue to go down and to help people? So
if you Google me, you'll see a whole lot of companies and stuff I've started. I had a cosmetic medical laser clinic, a pharmaceutical company that manufactured bioidentical injectable white label bioidentical injectable research peptides. We were supplying the Denver Police Department. I mean, guys at the Denver Police Department were buying these to take basically a legal alternative to injectable steroids. I mean, this is still an injectable product, but a research peptide that was untraceable, untestable, and also didn't have the negative side effects. So we had a Christian clothing company, launched a telecommunications company that by the cap, we had over 250,000 customers a month hitting our website. So it built some very successful businesses. The part that really got me into the personal branding side of it, with the telecom company, I had 3 retail stores that I owned. I had licensees all over the country, a couple dozen employees, spread out over the U.S. We had contracts with Sprint, Verizon, AT&T, and T-Mobile as a mobile virtual network operator, competing with companies like Virgin Mobile and Cricket and all of these kind of companies.
Right.
But I was in my little store in Hotchkiss, Colorado, and a big portion of our customers at the time come over from Mexico, and they loved our service because they could do international money transfers, basically international transfers through our mobile wallet platform on the phone,
right,
to their family back in Mexico, and we had a whole bunch of them using our unlimited international long distance calling plans. But this one summer, we started all of our Spanish speaking clientele, huge percentage of them were porting out to another phone company, another local company that was about 30 miles, in the next town over.
Right.
And one of my buddies, we'd gone to his daughter's quinceanera, and it's like we're good friends. We'd had doing the barbecues and, the backyard hangouts and stuff. But he come in one day and he said, "Hey, Curtis, I don't know if you've heard the rumor, but this other company is saying that you won't let Mexicans in your store, and you're a racist and you're bad. Basically this racist loser." And so I'm ticked off. I'm going, what the heck are you talking about? I'm not going to share the store name.
Right.
I'm not here to drag anybody down, but I told my employee, "Hey, you watch the place. I'm going to drive up there." And I'm thinking, okay, on the way up to the store, I'm going to grab this manager, drag him over the counter, grab him by the neck and
right.
Let him know this is not the way we do business. And as I'm getting up there, it's 30+ minute drive. And I start thinking, I'm like, man, there's got to be a better, I don't need to beat this guy up to,
right,
or, get in a fist fight, get arrested to prove that I'm a good guy. This is not going to be the story that I want the media to hear about.
Right.
So I'm up there. I'm just thinking, I just prayed about it. I'm like, God, help me figure out how to handle this. This is a big portion of our business. This is friends, family, this people we love that are leaving without telling us nothing. Just we get a call from this other company that they're porting out. So I walk into this other store and get in there. I'm looking around. The guy's busy with another customer, and so I'm walking around looking at their calling plans, and they've got pretty good international calling rates, very similar to what we offered, slightly higher. But it wasn't like the customers were leaving to go to them because we actually had the lower price. So I'm walking around, and he gets done with his customer that he's working with. And I said, "Hey, I just came from the bestseller store down in Hotchkiss. Do you know anything about that store? Or, know anything about that service?" And the guy instantly jumps into, "Oh yeah, that the owner of that company is racist. And, did you know he won't let Mexicans in his store?" And I'm like, so now, okay, I know for a fact where the rumor's coming from.
Right.
And I started asking questions like, wow, that sounds like a real loser. If that's true, I hope that guy goes out of business immediately. Like tonight, I hope somebody throws a flaming tire through the window.
Right.
That sounds like a bad dude. And so we talk. I kind of hyping the guy up, let him just ramble more and more and more about what a terrible person the owner of Best Cellular is. So I get done talking there. I said, "Man, if you guys ever need any help, I do some phone repair, and we've got some good deals on phones and computer repair and all this. If you guys ever need any help, feel free to give me a call." And I put my card on the table and slid it across his counter there. He picks it up and it says, "M. Curtis McCoy, President, Best Cellular." So he kind of stutters and trying to figure out how to redeem himself from the story that he just shared. But as I'm walking out of the store, I'm realizing, and as this guy's talking to me, I realize this is 100% my fault. I had not built a brand where we had 250,000 people a month hitting our website. And I walked into the local store, our number one competitor that's sucking up a bunch of our business. And the guy's telling a blatant, bold-faced lie about me to me, and didn't realize he was talking to the owner of the company.
Right.
So that was where I really figured out that I'm like, man, this is 100% my fault that he built a stronger brand story about me than I did. And that's what everybody's believing. So going from there, that's where we really started looking more into the personal branding. How do I start building my own brand where at least I can control and not look like a terrible person if somebody starts a rumor? But then went on to figure out, okay, that the people who build successful brands, Richard Brunson, for example, was our number one competitor. He had Virgin Mobile. He also had Virgin Airlines, Virgin Galactic,
Virgin everything,
Virgin Records.
Right.
Yeah. And that was our number one competitor. But people sign up with him. Any company he starts, you may not agree with his lifestyle, but he's built a massive loyal following of people who know, like, and trust him. And if he launches a new product, it's instantly successful because they know his name.
And see, that's unfortunately, I mean, that guy reverted or whatever, how you ever say it, to having to tell lies to get business. You know what I mean? Where, like you say, you got a Richard Branson, right? And he's built such a big brand, right? He's got a loyal, like you said, anything he opens up, he's going to get a bunch of people that are going to buy his products because they know, like, and trust him.
Yeah.
Right. But that taught you a valuable lesson that you didn't have to go that route, right? Like, that's probably when you said, when I build my brand, my personal brand, people are going to know, like, and trust me. So I don't have to, worry about this guy in another town telling lies about me because they're going to know me. And that's a process, correct? Like, when you figured that out, that's what I got to do. How was that process for you in building your personal brand to where you are today?
So there's a couple of things that are real important there. You need to start out with earned media. So there's earned media versus paid media, and they work hand in hand.
Okay.
But our company, earned media, is basically anything that you do to earn, whether that's writing blog posts, whether that's with our retail stores. We bought a gigantic, like an outdoor movie screen and a big high definition, high power projector like they use at churches. And we'd host these free outdoor movie nights. We'd do that at three different retail stores, different times throughout the month. And we'd put up a movie and just have the entire community advertise all over, free advertising, where we'd have our employees call and say, call the local radio station, the newspapers, anybody that had anything related to do with events. And one of our employees would call, not as an employee, just saying, hey, did you guys know that Best Sailor's got this free outdoor movie night? They're showing whatever movie this Friday night. There's going to be a taco truck and a popcorn truck. And, the last one was really awesome. I don't know if you guys have been there or not. But so now the radio stations are coming out, and we'd have radio stations are calling us, say, hey, would it be okay if we set up our truck in the booth and stuff beside you? And so we ended up where we're getting all this free media, but it took a ton of work to get, not only host the movies and have an employee there helping out throughout the night and making sure if somebody's got to run inside the store and go to the bathroom, that they're not also snagging a phone and walking out, those type of things. But
right.
But so earned media takes the investment of time and energy to earn that credibility, earn that recognition.
Right.
My side of this now is we work with, we've got Amazon Fire TV, host a show on there. We do Newswire Magazine. We'll put people on the 96-foot billboard in Times Square, New York. But that's paid media. So we basically work with people who have done enough on the earned media side, whether that's writing blogs, that could even be getting on, your favorite social media platform every day and just saying, hey, this is Max with the Fearless Happiness Podcast. Here's a tip on overcoming adversity. Hey, this is Max with Fearless Happiness. If you're struggling with addiction, here's a tip for you. But if you're every single day putting out value, solving somebody's problem for them, not asking for anything in return, just over and over and over again, providing value, that's the earned media side, where you start becoming known as the Fearless Happiness Podcast guy. And people start connecting with you because of that. And I know you're already getting you've got over 50,000 podcast listeners a month. So I know you're at the next level like that. But if somebody just started their podcast, they've got to earn that media. Then the paid media starts kicking in, where you're at a point where you're hiring or paying for advertisements or getting featured in Newswire Magazine or on the billboard and stuff like that costs money.
Right. That's awesome. I mean, like you said,
am I right about that? You're over 50,000 listeners a month, right?
I'm getting there. I believe so. I'm in the last that I heard from that I checked, I'm in the top 2.5% of podcasts in the world. Right. So I'm shooting for that 1%. So I know that being in the top 2.5% is at least 50,000 listeners, but I don't take credit for that. I let my guests who come on and share their stories, they're the ones that are making this podcast what it is. Because, being vulnerable and sharing, like, I know it's hard to talk about things that have happened in the past, but so that's why I appreciate you taking the time, Curtis, and being here and sharing that part of your life, because I do want to show people what success looks like. And this gentleman, like I'm telling you, everybody across from me, he's an amazing guy. He's got this smile on his face. You know, when we were first starting to talk, I could tell that was a little uncomfortable, but he did it because he's helping someone possibly go, oh, cool. I don't have to let that stuff stop me from being who I want to be. Right. And that's why I asked some of those questions early on, because it shows your resilience, Curtis. And it gives, my whole podcast too is about hope, right? If you, my guest, give someone hope, then I've done my job, right? Like I've done my job, and someone can come back and say, Max, you know, that guest Curtis, man, he really lit a fire under me, and he made me realize that I don't have to be who I was, what happened to me. I can choose to be whoever I want. And you're providing so much value with your story right now, Curtis. Like I'm getting goosebumps, right? Like I can actually tell people, like, I have a president of Newswire Magazine on my show, you know, because there was a time, like, if I let my past dictate who I was, I probably wouldn't be talking to you now, because I'd be stuck in the past going, oh, I'm not good enough. Yep. And I can't do a pod. Well, what makes me think I could do a podcast, right? So yeah. I believe that my guests are here for a reason, not only to teach me how to become a better human, but my audience, and show people that no matter what you've gone through, the human spirit is so resilient that you can become successful. And like I like to say, whatever that looks like, whatever success looks like for you, it could be, you know, owner of a company, making a lot of money, or, you know, being a Curtis McCoy, you know, a brand manager who helps people shine on big billboards, or like me, you know, just having these awesome conversations with an amazing human being that's sharing his story with me. Because that's what this is all about. And so far, like, you know, you've gone beyond my expectations. So yeah, I keep looking at his cup. You're gonna have to send me one of your cups there, Richard. I love collecting, you know, like people's brands, their cups. And anyway, so we're moving forward, right? And when did you leave the cellular business and make personal branding your full-time? Like, I want to say your full-time passion, your full-time love.
Yeah, so we had I ran Best Cellular. We actually started out as Boss Cellular in 2010 and ran that up until 2020. Actually, no, 2020. Started our first retail cell phone store in 2010. I think we launched our mobile virtual network operator, the telecom company, in 2012. Grew that into 250,000 customers a month with Best Cellular. And then when the Sprint T-Mobile merger was all happening, I actually consulted with the United States Federal Trade Commission on the Sprint T-Mobile merger, and then closed down the phone company in 2022. But I had already launched the personal branding side. We bought Newswire in 2018. So Newswire launched in 1997. We bought the company in 2018 when we had a massive tax liability, and you either had to spend money or pay it to Uncle Sam. So
right.
we bought Newswire, and I was planning on just building that up, you know, improving the business and then selling that,
right,
and continuing to run Best Cellular. But I figured out, man, I love helping authors, entrepreneurs, motivational speakers, podcast hosts, people who are crushing it in life and business. I love helping them to be able to reach and impact more people. I hated the retail business, the phone business, that entire thing. Made a lot of money, but was a terrible business to be in, and you weren't helping anybody. I mean, I could have died in the middle of the night or burned down all my retail stores overnight, and every single one of my customers and every one of my employees, we had really sharp people working for us. Every one of my employees could have gone down the street to the next cell phone store and got a job, probably making better money than I was paying them. Every one of my customers could have switched to their phone service. So switching to personal branding is something where I'm getting to speak all over the country. We speak at Caesar's Palace and some pretty cool events. We actually hosted an event last weekend here in Colorado that is really changing people's lives and helping them to, you know, expand their brand and be able to reach more people.
I love it. I love it. Because, you know, I keep thinking, man, if I would have let some of the things that I I'm going to take, like you did, you took total accountability for everything that's happened to you. Like you said, when I realized this, you know what I mean? Like if I would have just kept doing the blame game, we wouldn't be having this conversation. And I'm so grateful that, like, I hang out with people like yourself, Curtis, that, you know, teach me how to be accountable for the things that I do and not let things that others do bother me. But I'm human, as I know you are, and sometimes we can't help it. But you have the type of the attitude.
Sometimes we choose not to help it.
Right, exactly. But I think with like what we were talking about, I think you'll agree. Like our mindset now is like, I'm going to learn from that so I can better myself because of it, instead of going, oh my God, poor me, or you know what I mean, or getting angry. Because that's how, you know, like a friend of mine had drilled this into me when I first met him, and I've known him for like 15 years. He's very successful too, but he always says, Max, learn to lean into the suck, right? When you're leaning in, there's a lesson you need to learn, and probably most of the time a lesson within that lesson. And if you can be present enough in that suck, you'll learn it, and you're only going to grow from there. And like with my addiction, right? Like, I don't always like to talk about the bad things about that, like you, right? It's just something I don't like to talk about because it happened. I learned from it, but there is a good side to that because I learned grit from it. I learned how to persevere. I learned how to persist, right? I went through 4 relapses in a place where the judge said, if you slip up once or twice, you're going to prison, right? And
wow.
So I learned, like you did, like those sucked, but I learned from those lessons what kind of man I wanted to be, like how I wanted to help people and how I wanted, like you, to show up in the world. And, you know, like, I'm so grateful that you're here talking with me today, that, you know, I know my audience is sitting here going, wow, this is a great interview, Max, keep going.
Appreciate that.
Right. So what are some of the things, I'm just going to ask you what are some things you would like to teach my audience right now before I get into some of the other questions that I want to ask you?
Right, so there's 2 things. One of them is not related whatsoever to personal branding, but if you're listening to the Fearless Happiness podcast right now and you're wondering, maybe you're a young guy trying to figure out, hey, do I go ahead and end my life? What is my purpose here? Maybe you're feeling like you're worthless. You grew up in an abusive household. Whatever the reason is, maybe you just had your spouse leave you and you're feeling like you're worthless. But I was at a men's event, a men's retreat a few years back, and one of the guys stood up and said he realized you were created in the image of the God that created the entire universe. He created you in his image. So by default, you're amazing. If you're feeling like, and this is a different part of this, but if you're feeling like, man, what is my reason for being here? I'm not, you know, if you're depressed or down or unmotivated or just feeling sad, feeling like life sucks, go out and find somebody to help. If you're not helping somebody, that's a good reason you'd feel depressed and you feel like you're not, like you've got no worth. Go out and change somebody's life. The more that happens, the more you're impacting people. It is impossible to feel bad about yourself when you're constantly helping people to improve and help them feel better about themselves.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. That was one of the first lessons that I learned from my mentors in the program of AA, like the guys I hung out with. They always told me, Max, look, there was one guy that always would say, and he would say, share this in a meeting, right? Like, if you guys think your life is shit, excuse my language, everybody, go help somebody. If you still think it's shit, go help somebody else. If you still think it's shit, go help somebody else. Because if you do that enough, you're going to find out that your life is pretty good because you've just helped so many people. And you realize that you forgot about why you were depressed or having a hard time because you got outside of yourself and you're helping someone. Right. And
sorry about that.
No, go ahead.
The other part of that is the devil wants you to feel, he wants you to be stuck in your past. He wants you to feel like you're not good enough, like you're never going to be good enough. Like, how could God love me? I've screwed up so much in my life. How could God possibly love me? Yeah, he died. He died to save the world, but would he have done it just for me?
Right.
The devil wants you to feel like that, feel like you're never going to be good enough, because what happens then is you get sucked back into the negative, destructive stuff rather than being the person that God created you to be. So that was that's the part I would say about the part of this that really matters with our conversation here is figuring out why you're here. And then once you know that and you're able to start helping people, whether that's with a business, a podcast, a product, a service, a book, maybe you're just speaking and maybe you're speaking at schools. But when you figured out what your brand is and the problem that you solve for people, then it's time to start expanding that brand and make it to where you can reach more people. So if you're a good person doing good things, helping people, now you need to start building that brand. And if you're not reaching as many people as you can possibly deal with in a day, that's your fault. You're basically putting those gifts, God-given gifts, and that stuff that you've earned, you're putting that to basically wasting it if you're not out there reaching as many people as possible.
And I love it because, right, God has given us, each and every one of us, a gift, right? And I like some of my mentors said, Max, it's your job to find out what that gift is, and then you got to run with it, right? And know that it was given to you for a reason. So, man, this has been very powerful so far. So now I'm going to ask you my specific questions that I love to ask, Curtis. So, right, you see my podcast, and it's also the name of my book, Fearless. I'm going to start with that. What does fearless mean to you today, and how does that show up in your life on a daily basis?
I've heard quite a few versions of this, but being fearless doesn't mean you're not afraid of it. I guarantee you with David and Goliath, I would bet you David still had a little bit of a, even knowing God's got his back, David probably was still thinking, holy cow, this dude I'm about to go up against is 8 feet tall and ripping guys' heads off.
Right.
You would have to be kind of messed up psychologically not to have some type of fear there.
Right.
But just going out and doing it. One of the things people miss with personal branding as far as fear goes is I talk to people all the time who understand they need a personal brand. They've got a company or product or service or something that's doing well, and they understand they could maximize, they could change a huge percentage of the world lives by getting that product out to people, but they're afraid to get on camera. They're using that as an excuse where I'm not a public speaker. I can't, I'm afraid to be on camera.
Right.
If you get on, talk to one person, pick up a cell phone and get on every day. If it's a live video, if it's maybe you want to record and edit your videos and post them later, but if you can get on and just talk to, you may be serving thousands of people, but if you talk to a specific person, the one person who your absolute perfect target customer, target avatar,
right?
Their age, gender, marital status, their income level, how they vote, their religion. If you got that guy down to an absolute science, this is the person that I help. And you get on and every day solve some type of a problem or give them some type of a tip. Again, do this for free. Just get on, putting out value over and over and over again. Alex Hormozy is a great example of that. But then when it comes time to ask for a sale, you're the guy that people already know that you are the expert on that subject.
Right. I love that because I belong to a men's group, right? Where it's kind of like a big accountability group, right? We all keep each other like on the path of doing what we say we're going to do when we say we're going to do it, all that stuff, right? To help us become better men for our families and stuff. And I was talking to the guy who created the group, and he got to go spend some time with Ty Lopez, right? Him and a small group of these guys. And, a guy like Ty, right? His time is blocked out, right? And he says, okay, you got this much time with me. Well, it ended up he doubled the time because he got into it so much because they were asking such good questions of him. And the one thing that stuck with me that he told me that gives me goosebumps too, this is what I've seen from guys like you and other people I've interviewed, right? He said, because he dropped out of high school at 9th grade, ended up sold his company that he started, right? Now he's a billionaire, right? The one thing he said that the guy told me that stuck with me today, he says, if I would have poured into people earlier, not that I would have been more successful earlier, but he goes, I would have been much happier earlier on in my career, right? Because when you pour into people, right, like with what I do, like I do it for fun and for free. And I also get paid to help people get sober, right? As a substance abuse counselor. And both are very satisfying, right? And I lean into both of them and I do my best to help where I can. And And it's like, it's just what you said, right? Like if you know what that gift is and you've done the work and you pursue that, I think it's, yes, you're going to, life is a bunch of ups and downs, but at the end, when you look back, I always like to say, when I look at the guy at the mirror at the end of the day, I now love the guy that's looking back at me. And that's what counts, right? It wasn't the guy, like if you saw, okay, let me show you. So this guy, right? I don't know if you can see it, but that guy was my second to last arrest, right? I wasn't liking that guy way back when, right? So when I would get ready,
that's you.
That was me. That's the cover of my book. Like and right, I would, like I've told people, I would shower and do everything in the shower, right? Shave, brush my teeth, because I knew by the time I was done showering, it would be I would have to see that reflection that I hated so much. But now, today I'm a father, I'm a husband, I'm a grandfather, right? And I love, life is not perfect all the time, but I love what I do because I'm here with Curtis asking this guy to, sit with me and have a chat with me. So I've loved it. Everything so far has been amazing. And you've given so much value, Curtis. So I appreciate it. So that's going to lead me into the next question, which is happiness. As you can see, I put a Y in it, right? I did that on purpose. So what does happiness mean to you, and how does that show up in your life on a daily basis?
I spent years and years trying to earn my worth or prove to myself that I wasn't the loser, that I was, the waste of skin, the waste of oxygen. I built companies. We were on track by the end of our 10th year in business to do $986 million a year in total revenue. I mean, revenue sounds a whole lot better than profit. Profits were still very thin, but
right.
Close to $1 billion a year in total revenue is not a small company, even if you're making fractions of a cent per dollar of income.
Right.
And building the company throughout the years, my goal was to one day have my mom be able to have my mom and stepdad retire, have her get the racehorses, and she's always loved barrel racing. So I wanted to have her work and have her be able to have the horses and have the ranch and be able to just enjoy life. And the harder I worked, I originally thought, hey, if we could get to $100,000 a month, I am set. That's that's success right there.
Right.
We hit that in a pretty short time. And as it went on and on, I realized there was no possible amount of success of money that was ever going to make me feel like I was good enough. I mean, I get on stage, I speak at Caesar's Palace and get up there wondering, why are any of these people listening to me, feeling self-conscious and that imposter syndrome. Yeah. But at this point in my life, I'd say happiness, I make a lot less money than I ever have, but I am so much happier where I've got time to spend with my, hopefully my girlfriend does not listen to this episode before I ask him. I'm planning to ask her to marry me, become a permanent part of life here.
I love it. Congratulations.
Next week. So, but now happiness is spending time with her. She's got a 7-year-old son from her previous marriage, just the coolest little guy, but taking the time to be able to focus where in my business, I get to go out and coach and consult with young guys who are trying to start a business, trying to figure out how to build their brand up. And they may not have the money to do the paid media that we're offering yet, but I get to spend my life I'm doing 6 podcast interviews a day on most days. Incredible shows like this, connecting with leaders and just incredible, awesome people. So having the time to spend where your life matters and where you're really making an impact is so much more important to me than when I was just chasing the next financial mark.
I love it. What
about you? What's your definition of happiness?
The 10 grandkids I have. Well, my children and if I were to put it in a couple words is, okay, so 3 of our grandkids live downstairs, which is like a whole separate house, right? My stepdaughter, her husband, and our 3. It's when our youngest Charlie comes up and looks at me and calls me, because Opa is Dutch for grandpa or German for grandpa, right? she'll look at me and go, Popa, and give me a hug. Right.
That's awesome.
That to me is happiness. Like you know what I mean? Or if I'm talking to my son who at 30 almost died of a massive stroke, right? And he's almost 2 years sober now. Or my youngest daughter who's really working on her recovery, or just spending a lazy day with my wife. To me, that's success and that's happiness, right? Money, yeah, is necessary, right? Do I want more of it? Of course. I would love to take my family like my grandparents did. They took a lot of us on vacations back when they were young. You know what I mean? And that's one of my ultimate goals, is to take all my grandkids and take them on a Disneyland trip, not here locally, but to go to Disney World and just spend some time with them. That's awesome. But that's what happiness is to me, is seeing those grandkids, watching football games on a Saturday. My grandson's playing Pop Warner, and my other grandson is really good in soccer, and watching his games. So, you're right. Like, I try to chase the money and it never made me happy. That stuff makes me happy. And spending time here with you, Curtis, actually is my definition of happiness, because we get to have this awesome conversation, and I get to know you even a little bit more as we go through this, this interview, and hearing what happiness means to you, and hearing your story. It's amazing.
By the way, man, if you guys are listening to this right now, if you're listening to the Fearless Happiness podcast, get on social media, look him up. You're on Instagram, a few different platforms, right?
Correct. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn.
I need to make sure you and I are connected too, because I think there's a lot of good stuff I can get from listening to your, seeing the clips and stuff from your other interviews.
Oh, absolutely. We'll talk after for sure. So that will lead me into this. So Curtis, say there's an upcoming person who needs personal branding or wants to reach out and work with you. How does my audience get a hold of you, whether it's for branding, coaching, or just maybe another podcaster says, I got to interview Curtis, man. He's amazing.
Appreciate that. Yeah, man. Anybody, I don't care if you're starting a podcast and you have never had a guest on before. I am happy to jump on there with you, go through the, work as you're trying to figure out how to get your camera connected, or shows like this one that's got over 50,000 listeners a month. Anyway, reach out to me. You can find me on social media, or just Google M. Curtis McCoy. I'm on every social platform as M. Curtis McCoy. You can also check out Newswire Magazine. And would you like me to share how people can get featured if somebody's at a level where they're looking to start building their brand, expanding?
Absolutely.
And go for getting on the Times Square billboard and stuff.
Absolutely.
So send me a message. I've got to a point now, as far as the branding, where we're able to start kicking out some folks that are not, if your message does not align with the audience. One of those, for example, we had a guy that I'd read his books, leadership books, for years. This guy was like kind of a childhood hero, and had him interview his marketing director reached out to have him interviewed on our show on Amazon Fire TV. We are going through the interview, and the guy starts talking about how he'd been experimenting with psilocybin, LSD, and microdosing different drugs. And
right.
And then he's sharing the story where I'm going, okay, I'm interviewing the guy on leadership, on how to be, how to be a better communicator, how to connect with people and really inspire your team to grow.
Right.
And he starts talking about all this drug use, where it's how beneficial it is for him to be microdosing these drugs. And he said, the other morning I was stuck he said he had eaten a bunch of mushrooms, I guess taken too many, and was sitting underneath of his kitchen table. And he said, I realized in that moment that I am God. I am the universe. God is in me. And, he starts going on. I said, hold on, wait, I said, say that again. He said, yeah, I realized I am God. And I said, hold on, we're done here. I stopped recording, and listen, this is not going to sound good. I was interviewing you as this leader that I've read a lot from you, reading your books and stuff.
Right.
I'm interviewing to share your leadership principles with our audience. You telling people to start microdosing drugs is not going to help you. Or the only benefit I'm going to get out of this is showing people how you've screwed up your life, and now you're have gone in a bad direction, but it's not gonna be a good thing for you. And he said, well, we can spin this however you want it to be. I was just trying to open your mind or whatever. And, I said, listen, this is not going to be an episode we're going to feature. And he said, money is not an object here, or money's not an issue. He said, I am happy to pay you whatever the cost is. Cut out the parts you don't like. Just, so he starts telling me, like, I'm going to pay you no matter what, get this article featured.
Right.
And so we're to a point now. That's part of success. What I'd say my definition of success is getting to a point where the money, where you can refund somebody if you know that that's not the right client. You can say, listen, hey, we're not doing business, and whatever you're looking to pay me is not going to change my mind. That being said, if you're listening to the Fearless Happiness podcast right now, you reach out on social media, you get connected, search M. Curtis McCoy, you're looking to be featured. If you're somebody that's helping people, that's inspiring, that's uplifting, that's got a product or service or something that helps people, even if, say, for like a life coach type of person, if you're living the life that you tell people you can help them learn how to live, you'd qualify to be featured. Reach out. We'll do an interview kind of like this, where I first research you, make sure I know everything about you, your company, your service, whatever it is, and help where I can ask questions to highlight you as the expert in your field. Then at the end of it, as long as you don't say something goofy about,
like I'm God, I'm under the kitchen table, but I'm God. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So as long as you've got a good message, something that's going to help our audience, then at the end of that, we'll go through some options where we can get you featured on the cover of Newswire Magazine, featured articles, spotlight reviews, get you featured on Amazon Fire TV on a permanent feature where you've got a web page with do follow links coming to your, to your website or social platforms. We'll put your Newswire Magazine article on, or the cover on the 96-foot billboard in Times Square, New York, a lot of that kind of stuff. But reach out to me if you're looking to get featured. Reach out. We'll schedule a call like this. Connect. If we get along, we're good friends. Stuff is working out. Then we'll talk about getting you featured.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Curtis. I'm sure there's people's light bulbs going on now. Like I know mine is, but thank you for putting that out there. And like I said, this has been such a great time. You've added so much value to this podcast today and given so much value. I've learned so much about you as a human being and what a kind man you are, and just how you love helping people. But there's one last question before we end this. It's my favorite question that I ask all my guests, and it goes like this. What is the one piece of advice, Curtis, you could give my audience to help them grow as human beings and become better people?
So we've covered this a couple of times already. The biggest thing to start growing as a human is figure out what your purpose is, not focused on what am I meant to do to make me happy? What am I meant to do to live the best life that I can? Focus on how you help other people improve their lives, how you can use your story to make their lives better, or how you can help them to grow from whatever you've gone through already. And then figure out that problem you solve for people. That will not only make you give you better self-confidence and a sense of self-worth, but also money comes to people who are solving problems. So you'll have to worry a whole lot less about how to pay the bills if you're solving a problem for somebody and charging a reasonable price for it.
Love it. Love it. Well, this has been an awesome time, Curtis. Thank you so much for being here. And you heard him, everybody. If Curtis made you think, if he taught you something, if he made you smile, and my famous, if he made you go, I like that. Please go to iTunes and leave a 5-star review so more people can find the podcast. And again, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in this world. It's Max from the Fearless Happiness Podcast. Until next time.